Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schleck. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. Big shout out to Zach Prince for being first in the chat on YouTube. You can find us on YouTube. It was big time. So make sure that you join us in the chat. For most of our shows, we will be live on YouTube. You get to see Alex's great hair. Alex, what is up, my man?
Nothing. Woke up 5 minutes ago. Andrew gave me the call. I answered. My alarm didn't go off. So
it's early.
Woo!
It's early. So Thunder Wave, Josh Gray. Big news.
One down.
One down. I would expect there to be more today. Some more waivings today. And actually, from what I've heard, when the Thunder made that trade, the Steven Adams trade, and they included those three guys, they actually intended to keep them. I was like that's what they initially wanted to do. They actually like those guys. But when they found out that they could get, what's his name from the Pelicans?
Darius Miller.
Frank Jackson. Frank
Okay.
Jackson.
All right.
When they found out they could get Frank Jackson, they were actually pretty surprised that he was just going to be available to just be picked up like that. And so that threw a wrench in kind of that initial plan. And honestly, and I don't know that I agree with this one, but they felt the same way about TJ Leaf. They were surprised they could get him and get an asset for TJ Leaf. I would have been like, yo, could have told you that, man. But
Not surprising.
Not surprising. They were actually surprised.
We could have told you that in 2017.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If you want him,
he's there. If you want him,
you can have him.
You can just have him. Actually, we'll pay you to take him. Take him, please. Anyways, so those were some transactions, some stuff that I heard about just Thunder transactions, and I would expect more waivings to come today. But those guys, when they initially traded for them, they weren't just supposed to be throw-ins. They were actually supposed to be in training camp. But clearly now they will not be in training camp.
So we're down. What are we down to? 20?
Yeah, I believe there's 20.
All right.
Everybody wants to know about the Bazley stuff. It honestly was not a big deal, to me or to Bazley or to anybody. It really,
or to me
or to Alex. I know that it's fun to, I know it's fun to hope that these things can light up and be fun, but it's really just not really. It's really not anything whatsoever. So that's really all I have to say about it. I still really like Darius. I think he's a good guy. So I'm just not worried about it at all. So just so you know, I know people are talking about it today. NBD to me, not a big deal.
Ooh, NBD.
Oh, and I think one thing that I do think could be a kind of a big deal is if every time something like that happens, because I mean, honestly, we don't know why Darius was in a bad mood yesterday. He just was. And a lot of people want to tie it to tanking. A lot of people want to tie, anything negative, and just be ready. For those of you that want the Thunder to tank and want them to rebuild and want them to do it in the right way, you've got to know that anything negative that happens with the Thunder, people that don't like the plan are going to try to tie it to tanking. Like yesterday, Bazley in a bad mood. Have you ever shown up to work in a bad mood, Alex? Has that ever happened?
Oh, I can't think of one day. No.
I think that's what happened yesterday. But people are trying to tie it to tanking. He clearly doesn't like the plan.
For sure.
Those are the type of things that you have. If you want to be right, if you want to be on the right side of this, these are the things you have to watch out for. Because drama, any kind of drama is going to happen in the NBA. Look at any NBA team is going to have drama. The Thunder are going to have drama. And there could be drama associated with losing, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter with the big plan that's in place. I mean, there was drama with the Sixers whenever they did their plan. There's drama with the Rockets, and they have a nice team. There was drama with the Warriors, with Kevin Durant and with Draymond Green when they were the best team in the world and maybe the best team to ever play together. There's drama. And so we just have to be careful with regards to like attaching that drama to the plan and saying the plan is why there's drama. There's going to be drama because a lot of NBA players just bring drama. I mean, that's just a part of it. And that's partially like why people like listening to podcasts and like doing stuff like this. It's just crazy. Ben Ellard, it's probably because you called him Bays. I mean, Jenny Carlson called him Bays. Like, get a grip, Ben.
Well, talking about drama, like when you're a tanking team and you're losing a lot of games, there's not like a lot else to talk about. So like if you think back 2 seasons or especially 3 seasons to the OK3 year, like there was so much drama that year. Or if you go back to like the Westbrook Barry Trammell stuff, like there's always drama, but at least in recent Thunder history, there's always been something else to talk about. We're always talking about the playoff chase,
right?
Or who's going to be our matchup or something like that. And this year is going to be interesting because we already kind of know. We know. In fact, I was looking at the odds. Actually, I was looking at the odds to win the championship. Have you seen these? OKC is like in the middle. They were ahead of a significant number of teams.
When was it? What's the date on that?
It was recent because I was looking it up last night, just for my own. But anyways, we know that they're not going to be, winning the championship. We know that they're not going to be making the playoffs. And so that already removes 2 things that a fan base would normally want to be talking about during the season. And so I totally can anticipate that if like Shea has a bad game and he gives a post-game presser where he's just like, we just don't have enough help. If he says something like that, it would like blow up.
Let's write all the storylines today.
Oh,
because we can do it. We can write every storyline that's going to happen over the course of these next few years. And then we can write what like the people on the radio are going to say.
Oh, I already got one. I got a great one.
Okay,
I got a great one.
Go.
This is one that I'm already predicting. It's going to be so nostalgic for us. But one of the things I was thinking about in watching or listening to the media day and listening to Presti talk and Coach Dagnall talk was that they were putting a lot onto Shea, and they were being very aggressive about doing that, saying like we're gonna give Shea the ball. He's gonna have the ball. He's gonna have all the runway he wants to do, and we can see what he is. I have a prediction that if Shea comes out of the gate and it's just like doesn't look like a lead ball handler, there will be a large contingent of newfound Ty Jerome fans that are like, Ty Jerome should be the starting point guard. Shea is not a point guard.
Teo Maladon needs to take the reins.
We're going to have some classic Eric Maynor redux.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
Yeah. I mean, and it's this kind of stuff is going there. There's just everything that's going to happen. We can predict it. There's going to be Shea stuff. Is Shea happy? I hear from sources that Shea would like to be on a different team. Headline, it's going to happen. That will happen. And who's going to be saying it? It's going to be executives from other teams that would like to have Shea. I mean, that's the type of stuff that's going to go on. It will inevitably happen. It will inevitably happen that, Shea's unhappy. Lou Dort doesn't think he has enough help. It's gonna be, you have to be ready for it, because with this, I know it sounds so exciting and so fun to tank and get these high draft picks, but the truth is, like, this season could be like super rough. That could happen. We could have many press conferences where people get upset with me because I asked them a simple question. And that's a part of this. I mean, they're literally This team had been so good for so long and had so many different superstars. And now there's not an all-NBA player on this team. There's not. And the Thunder are trying to essentially turn around an aircraft carrier. And it's going to take time, and it's difficult. It's not a quick process. And there's going to be like a lot of pain associated with this rebuild and with getting this team to where they want to go. And that pain could include locker room drama. It could include a player saying that they're dissatisfied. It could include even Shea saying that if he doesn't get help, he's going to jump ship or whatever. But you know what will change Shea's mind? When the Thunder plop down $175 million in his lap, he'll be like, oh, all right, sounds good. I'll take it. Because everybody takes it. Everybody takes that first contract. I mean, how many guys on the Sacramento Kings have taken that first contract? All of them. The team is going to move, Alex. If they don't win games, the team is going to move. What team has moved because a team loses? Like, name one.
Very few. I made a Twitter thread about it. There's only been 3 since 1986, and they were all very interesting scenarios. And was losing a part of all those scenarios? Yes. Although you could argue that in Charlotte's case, when they originally moved to New Orleans, they actually had good teams throughout that time and weren't getting fans. But the one that would be like the clearest example, if you were trying to make this case, would be Vancouver. But Vancouver was so unique because they were in Canada and were a brand new franchise. And there was actually some financial reasons that were unique to Canada. Like the Canadian dollar was very weak at the time. And that apparently played into the owners' thinking because they started losing a bunch of terrible games. If you've never read what happened with Steve Francis, being drafted by Vancouver and him saying, no, I'm never going to play there. Go read that. Like, they had a bunch of factors that were unique to them that led to them eventually moving to Memphis. And I think the thing that is weird about OKC and that's so unique to them is the city itself and the ownership group, which is from that city. And Presti even brought this up in his press conference, this acknowledgement that the Thunder are bigger than a professional sports franchise in Oklahoma City. And they are. They're significantly better or bigger than just being a professional sports franchise. Even like being out here in Portland, a city that only has the Blazers and the Timbers, like it still feels so much different out here. Like it feels like what I've experienced being like in Philadelphia or other cities like that, where it's just cities that are used to having their professional sports franchises for a very long time. Whereas like when I go back to Oklahoma City, it just feels different. It almost feels like back when we were in high school and going to like pep rallies for Putnam City North. Like that's the type of environment I feel around the city about how people support the Thunder. It's just a much different thing. And maybe that doesn't matter after 3 years of losing. Well, we'll see. But I just think that they're starting from a much better point because they're bringing with them, a last decade of success. And so that part of it, I'm just like not worried about.
Yeah.
Fans not being excited to watch losing, like totally get it. And that's why you've got to adjust your approach. That's why I'm on YouTube TV and I'm adding to my DVR all these college teams. All of a sudden, I'm turning on Evan Mobley last night. Watching a little Evan Mobley. He's so tall.
It's true. Our expectations, everything kind of has to be adjusted. And if you're against the rebuild, if you're against this tanking or whatever you want to call it, I mean, the reason the Thunder are doing it is because they would like to win a championship. And the going I think we're back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. I think an anti-tanker infiltrated our chat here.
Oh no.
But what I was saying is that it's people are just going to make excuses, honestly, over and over again with why tanking doesn't work and that it's harmful to players. It brings about these bad habits that you can't get rid of. And all these things that just aren't true, like none of them are true. Like tanking didn't hurt Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. Tanking has tanking hurt the development of Devin Booker? I mean, I would say no. Did it make Joel Embiid a much worse player than he is today? I wouldn't say it did. There's just going to be so many arguments, and you have to, if you want to be on the right side of this, because this is the way the Thunder are going, and they're doing it not because they want to lose. I mean, trust me, the Thunder don't want to lose. They're doing this because they want to win, and they want to win big. Now, they could adjust the plan today, and it wouldn't be that hard. They have so many assets that they could go out and form a 42-win team and try to make the play-in game. They could do that. It would be actually pretty simple to do that. And then we could root for a team to win 42 games. And then the next year, we'd probably root for them to win 42 again. And then just scratch and claw and be the Sacramento Kings, who have been trying to make the playoffs for the last several years. And hopefully now they've got a new GM and Monty McNair, and hopefully he's got them on the right track. But I mean, in the past, you just have these teams that just scratch and claw just to get in the playoffs, and like that's their goal, and that's fine. I mean, you just have to adjust your expectations with certain moves that are made. The expectation that you should have for this Thunder franchise is within the next 3 to 5 years that they're competing for a title. I mean, that's the expectations that you should have. That's what this plan is all about. That's what it's all about. And it could fail, but I think that they're willing to ride it out until it is not a failure. So I don't know. Those are just things to watch out for, and things that are coming our way.
And I think the difference, or the unique position that the Thunder are in, is that because they have such a war chest of future assets, if after a year it became clear to Clay Bennett and Sam Presti that like we can't do this for multiple years, they have the type of war chest where they could acquire multiple picks in next year's draft and basically like fast forward this rebuild if they really wanted to.
Oh, I think that they would like to do that anyways. I mean, if they could acquire multiple top 6 picks in next year's draft, they will. I mean, they will try. I mean, in the 2007 draft, I mean that's what Sam did. Is that he went and got Kevin Durant and Jeff Green. He already had Kevin Durant. He made a trade to get into the top 5 to get Jeff Green, because that was another one of those drafts that was supposed to be like a legendary draft. It turns out that there were only a few guys that were good in that draft. But at the time, like you had Greg Oden and Kevin Durant, and you had Mike Conley, and you had Al Horford, and you had Jeff Green, and all these guys that, and some of them ended up being really good players. But I would say they're going to probably do everything they can to grab a couple of those guys next year, regardless of how things are going. And the Thunder are lucky that they kind of get this strange year where you don't have fans in seats, which I think is the right decision. And it won't matter. You kind of get a grace year with this team and with the fan base. And I don't know if they're going to get all the TV rights stuff taken care of, but as of now, like you can't hardly even watch them. So it's
and the draft is like insane. Just the type of player that is going to be available. I mean, obviously you have Cade Cunningham, which he's a 6'8" point guard, and then you have Evan Mobley, who's like this 7 foot, like really fluid big man.
Yeah.
But then the next 5 guys are all like 2-way wings.
Yeah.
All of them.
I mean, honestly, the next 3, I heard this yesterday. I had somebody that knows these young guys very well yesterday told me that the next 3 drafts are going to shape the NBA for the next 20 years.
Yeah, because we're already hearing about the guys from 2022.
Yep. So, I mean, it's a good time because a lot of it is timing. A lot of it is because if you tank the last 3 years, you unless you're Zion, John Morant, like you're kind of screwed. If
Yeah.
you tanked this past season, you're just kind of screwed. Because, I mean, I don't like LaMelo. I don't know where. I'd actually be really interested to ask Sam Vecini where he'd put LaMelo if LaMelo was in the 2021 draft. Like, where would he put him? But it's probably not top 5. I mean, to me, it is really good timing. It just happens. I think some of that is luck, and honestly, you need luck to get back to where the Thunder want to be.
And hearing Sam Vecini basically say like Cade Cunningham is one of my top prospects that I've ever scouted, and he's said that's been over the last 7 seasons. And yet he also says that like he might go 7 or 8 deep in this draft of guys who he would have taken number 1 in this draft.
Yeah.
So like those two factors, it's just like, I mean, there's just so many guys I like want to watch because there's going to be value all the way down to maybe like the 7th or 8th pick.
Yeah. And the odds are that the Thunder won't get the number 1 pick because the odds are just low. The odds are low to get it. Even if you have the worst record, the odds are low. But if you're 3, I mean, you have to remember the Thunder never picked number 1. Have never picked number 1 since they've been in OKC and got there. So you have to trust that the Thunder can identify guys. But man, it's gonna, I think if we have our focus in the right place and that it's not on like nightly winning and that it's on like player development, like how does Shea look? How does Bazley look? How does Maladon look? How are these guys progressing? What does Poku look like? Can he actually function on an NBA court? And which I think he will. I think the big misconception with Poku right now is that people are like, well, he's just not big enough. Yeah, he's not big enough to play center. He's not big enough to be an NBA big. But I mean, my question right now is like, what if Poku's just a wing? Like, what if that's his position? Then it probably doesn't matter as much.
Yeah, I'm think. I mean, who knows? We're basing this on like short little clips from this Greece second division, but it's hard watching him and thinking like, oh, he has the frame to eventually be a center. Like, I don't even think that's possible. He almost looks more like a 3, which is crazy to say. It's a lot of it's going to be based on what he can do defensively. Right, and who he's able to guard night to night, because he is kind of a unicorn. I've never seen a player like that. I've never seen a player that skinny, that tall, who moves like that on the wing.
Yeah, so I haven't either.
We kind of have to see, because even Evan Mobley, who's really fluid for a big man, you can still see in his frame that when he like builds out and it starts lifting and like getting bigger and putting on weight, like he's going to be bigger than Poku ever will be. So yeah, that's going to be really interesting to watch. And also, I think talking about tanking, like when we get into February, they've probably lost a lot of games at that point.
Yeah.
Post-game interviews, Andrew, you're going to have to bring your A game. You're going to have to, we can't be asking these guys, what's it feel like to lose every night? We're going to have to come up with some stuff to ask them.
Yeah. I mean, I think the stuff to ask is like, how do you feel about your progression from the beginning of the season? That type of stuff. Or how'd you feel about this matchup tonight? Like, what was that like? I mean, but overall, it's just going to be tough. And like I said at the beginning, like there's going to be drama. Like that is sure to happen. And again, we can write the headlines before they happen. You just have to know that this is pretty normal NBA stuff, and people are going to try to attach it to losing and to tanking. But we just have to be smarter than that, is what it comes down to. We just have to be smarter than that.
Yeah, there will be some national people too who start taking aim.
There already are. I mean, David Aldridge, who I have a ton of respect for, just flat out believes tanking doesn't work. Right. And I think people believe tanking doesn't work is because really nobody has done it successfully outside of the 76ers. Other teams have just lost a lot of games, but for people to understand like tanking as a strategy, I think a lot of people miss the mark and don't know it because they haven't seen it, which is understandable. But I just think that's kind of the reality. And it's going to be people you respect that are going to be saying these type of things. Zach Lowe may report that Shea is unhappy or something like that, but you have to, we have to keep our eyes on like what the real prize is. That's getting players to this city on long-term deals that can be like championship difference makers. And like, that's the goal.
All right. You want to do some over-unders?
Let's do it.
All right. Last week, we flew through the first 5 in the Eastern Conference. And how exciting it was. We were going so fast, you probably couldn't even keep up. And bringing up from last week, let's see. The only ones that we differed on were the Detroit Pistons. I went over, you went under. And the rest of them, we all agreed on. So we took the Chicago Bulls over, New York Knicks under, Atlanta Hawks under, and the Cleveland Cavaliers over. Oh, those already sound terrible.
What have we
reading
done?
Back over them. Okay, so starting us off, the Washington Wizards. Last year, they were 25-47, which projects to be 28.5 wins in an 82-game season. The over-under this year, 28.5, which in an 82-game season would project to be 32.5. They didn't really lose anyone. They picked up Robin Lopez and Denny Avdia.
Avdia. Yeah.
Avdia.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're saying, it sounds like you're saying AVD, but it's ADV. Avdia. Okay. They're an interesting one. They've got Bradley Beal, who they claim that they don't want to trade. They never want to trade. He will retire in a Wizards jersey. That is the info that we're being fed day after day after day, very forcefully, I will say as well. And I think part of that is just reporters pushing back on like fans from every other team base who are like, well, let's just go get Bradley Beal. We just got to go get him. Why wouldn't the Wizards want to get rid of him? And then you have John Wall coming back after 2 seasons. You've got our guy Davis Bertans playing on his brand new 5-year, $80 million contract. They've got some young guys, I guess. They've got questionable young guys.
Yeah, they've got some young guys.
Can they win? All you need them to do is win 32 games.
Yeah. There's a lot of belief in John Wall coming from the Wizards camp.
Yeah.
It's been emanating for a while, actually. So, I mean, if he can play and he's any good, I think it's an easy over.
Right.
I think Robin Lopez actually helps them quite a bit because their defense was just so bad, like historically bad last year, that I think Denny helps them. I think Robin Lopez helps them. I think John Wall certainly helps them if he's anything. So, I mean, for me, I'm going to go over because they would like to be better. They would like to try to get into the 8th seed or try to get into the playing game.
Right.
That's where they're at. That's where their mindset is. And, you have Rui coming back for his 2nd year. They believe in Troy Brown's progression. Jerome Robinson showed some stuff in the bubble. Who knows if that's real or not. By the way, it was just funny listening to Sam Presti answer a question about like the bubble playoff experience. And he was like, I don't count the bubble as playoff experience. That was really interesting. But yeah, I'm going to take the over on the Wizards. Isak Bonga, got some big Bonga fans out there.
Big Bonga fans are everywhere. Gosh, always in my mentions and my DMs. Talk about Bonga more.
They love Bonga, and I do too. So I'm taking the over.
All right. Well, I'm going under because I'm not as rosy on their future. And I think in this era where if you have a star player and he's on the trade block, you can basically set up your entire franchise's future with the number of picks you're going to get. If they're not like convincingly a playoff team by the trade deadline, like if they're hovering down there in like the 10 to 11 range and it's like, well, maybe we could make the play-in tournament. I just think that the type of offers they're going to get in this new environment will be so overwhelming that they'll almost have to do it. Because what is the realistic path forward if they are not a clear playoff team by February? What is the realistic path forward for them? Because you're still stuck with John Wall for several more years in this scenario, and he wouldn't be good enough to necessarily push them up into like, a 5 or 6 seed.
Right.
I just think if that happens, they will have to move Bradley Beal because the offers will be so good. I mean, if you can get 3 first-round picks and 2 swaps for Drew Holiday, what could you get for Bradley Beal, who is locked up for several more years?
You could demand whatever you want.
Yeah, and if you don't get that trade, fine, you keep him. But there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to get somewhere between a Drew Holiday and a Paul George type return.
Yeah,
Bradley Beal, he's that good, and there's enough teams who should be interested in getting him.
Yeah,
I don't know who that team would be, because I think there's certain teams where it just like wouldn't make sense. Like I don't know if the Wizards necessarily want to bet on the Warriors being bad, for instance, even if they gave them all their picks.
Sure.
But I feel like a deal is going to be out there, so I'm taking the under.
Okay.
Taking the under.
I mean, I think that would be best for the Wizards franchise. Tommy Shepard, their GM, has been very adamant about not trading Beal.
Oh, we've heard it.
He won't stop. He talks to everybody about it. But I understand where you're coming from. I actually hope that's the direction that they go.
I just don't think that Brad Beal, I mean, we saw it last year. He's not the sort of player who on his own is going to be able to get your team to the playoffs year after year.
What player could do that on their own? I mean, LeBron didn't even lead that Lakers squad to the playoffs that year, and he had some injuries. True. But I mean, it's impossible. It's impossible. I actually really, really, for several reasons, hope that they trade for Russell Westbrook.
Honestly, that would be the other option that I'd be really excited about for them, because I actually do think that would be a really good setup for Russ. I mean, we talked about for years wanting Bradley Beal. We know that Presti was targeting him back in the day. A Russ Beal backcourt for a couple seasons would be awesome. I feel like that's exactly the type of star that would work next to Russ. I mean, similar like Paul George, I think was a really good fit as well. But I think Brad Beal would be awesome. Okay, moving on to the Charlotte Hornets. We got a mover and shaker. The Charlotte Hornets. I think we've skipped them the last 2 years. We passed. But this year, we got to talk about them. Last year, they won 23 games, which was the equivalent to winning 29 games. This year, their over-under is only 26.5, lower than the Wizards, which is equivalent to 30.2 wins in an 82-game season. Their key losses, Nick Batum, I suppose. Key additions, Gordon Hayward and LaMelo Ball. Now, this
Big names. Big names.
Big names. I've heard of them. One thing I've been thinking about, Hardwood Paroxysm, Matt Moore, he put out a tweet just talking about like how weird this season is going to be for rookies. And I did start to think, like, should I be allowing that to influence how I think about some of these teams? Because like in a normal year, LaMelo Ball would have played in Summer League. Then he would have had a really long training camp. Like he'd have some time to ramp up to the season. Now he's having about 3 weeks, and it's not even like real practices because of the COVID restrictions. He's only going to be able to be working out with a few guys at a time. And then he's going to be just thrown into the fire that is NBA basketball after honestly having not played in a serious professional league in some time. I mean, his time in Australia was the closest, but going back before that, it was probably back when he was in high school, which is a few years ago. I'm getting a little worried about any team whose success is going to hinge on the success of a rookie this year. And that alone is making me feel like I might, or I should go under with the Charlotte Hornets. And Andrew is at the hotel. He's got the hotel Wi-Fi. He is frozen on my screen. He's oh, we got a second slam through.
I think the internet realized that we should have skipped the Charlotte Hornets for a third year.
Wow. Interesting.
Okay, sorry. I don't know where you were, but
well, I decided to go under because of the idea that any team that's going to be relying heavily on a rookie this season, I'm going to be a little bit sketchy about, and maybe they don't. Maybe he becomes their sixth man off the bench, but I just think there's going to be a lot of pressure to throw LaMelo like to the wolves and let him start, and let's see what we've got with him.
Yeah. And is there one other guy on the team that you believe in? I mean, Gordon Hayward's a nice player. He's a good complementary player, but he's 30 and has had like a billion injuries.
Yeah, I mean, my NBA smart guy would probably be PJ Washington.
Yeah, it's very smart.
If you don't know about PJ Washington at this point, and the Charlotte Hornets have said they're going to be playing him more at the 5 this year, running some small ball.
Oh, very exciting. Very exciting.
But yeah, it's a weird pick because last year they definitely overachieved. They won the equivalent of 29 games, and their over-under this year is only projecting them to win one more game. So, like, I totally understand going over on them, but I just I'm not buying it.
I'm buying it. I'm all in. I'm taking
You're
the
all
over.
In.
I'm all in. I'm in on the Martin twins, Caleb, Cody. Totally
you ordered your ball jersey.
I did. I like LaMelo. I think Hayward's a nice player. I think Terry Rozier is a little bit better than people give him credit for. And if like one of PJ Washington, Miles Bridges pop, then you're there. So I'll go over.
Wow. So we've disagreed on the first two. I think LaMelo Ball could have like an awful rookie season. And the more I thought about it, because the type of player he is,
possible.
He was already super inefficient. I doubt anything has changed dramatically with his shot. Obviously, he's always going to have his passing, and maybe he just like relies on that in his rookie year. But I have a feeling he could be like a just extremely inefficient lead guard who's taking a lot of bad shots. We'll see. But you like him. That's great for you. Next, Orlando Magic. Orlando, 33 wins last year, equivalent to 37 wins in a normal season. This year, their over-under is 31.5, which is equivalent to about 36 wins. So you just need them to basically do what they did last year, which shouldn't be too hard because their key losses were only DJ Augustine and Wes Iwundu. Although we should probably throw in Jonathan Isaac in there, but he's still on the team, but he's not going to be playing this year. They didn't really add too much. No one I saw that was worth talking about. So they've basically got the same team. You're putting a lot more pressure on Markelle Fultz this year.
A lot more.
Because DJ Augustine is not there anymore. You don't have that like reliable veteran point guard to back him up. But although you do have MCW, I guess that's your veteran backup point guard. He's going to be thrust into a bigger role as well.
He will play. Yep.
I think this is interesting because if they don't hit their over, you're essentially picking them to probably miss the playoffs, or at least either way, they're probably going to be in that play-in game.
Yeah.
And for a team like Orlando, who for the last several years, it seems like the only thing they really care about doing is making the playoffs. And the field has kind of opened for them this last couple of years, where that's been relatively easy for them to do.
Yeah.
If they go under, you got to wonder, like, what is next? What is next for the Magic?
I mean, I think that like the Vucevic, Gordon, Fournier group makes you just good enough to be in the middle. I mean, they're certainly going to be in the middle of the East, which is, I mean, that's just like death, right? it's
Especially now with the play-in. I feel like that changes my perception of things because now it's like the Magic can't just bank on like we're just going to be slightly better than the middle. Now it's like even if you are slightly better than the middle, now you're going to be thrown into this random tournament, which is going to be like the results of it are probably going to be random year to year, which is the whole point of it.
Yeah.
And that's just scary for a team like that.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's obvious. It's just horrible. They do get my guy Chuma Okeke.
That's true.
Who
he was injured all of last year.
I really like him. I cannot believe they took Cole Anthony at 15. That's just whoa. Why?
No,
but he'll play.
Now you don't think because I've been seeing this a little bit watching Caleb Love, who's the UNC lead guard this year, who's probably going to be a one and done. And a lot of draft heads on Twitter are talking about how UNC is really hard to evaluate guard play because of just their system. And so is there any chance that someone like Cole Anthony, who was the preseason number one,
he was
by Sam Vecini had him number one. Is there any chance that there could be a hidden gem there?
I'll say I may be completely wrong on him. I could be. Also, not only is the system difficult to evaluate, that team sucked last year. That was an awful Tar Heels team. And he had to create everything for himself. I mean, everything. It did not look good, but he had to create everything for himself. Now, if you throw him out there with Vucevic, who's a really good player, people forget how good he is. He's 20 and 10, 4 assists. I mean, he's a nice player. Aaron Gordon is a good player. Fournier is a good scorer. You put him out there with guys that actually attract attention. Like maybe he could be a guy. I mean, that's not impossible. I probably believe in him more than I believe in Markelle Fultz at this point.
Oh wow.
But I don't know. He's fine. They could, and somebody in the chat who said it, said they could use George Hill. Matty Moles. Is there a trade to get George Hill to the Magic?
Uh-oh. Andrew's getting visions of picks in his head.
Because that could be helpful to them. If their goal is to try to make the playoffs. If I'm them, I'm trying to find trade destinations for all the three guys that I mentioned and just trying to ship them off. That's what I would be doing. I would not be trading for George Hill, but maybe they want to make the playoffs. Maybe that's a thing.
I feel like, George Hill is a very magic-y player.
He's very magic. You could just do straight up Al-Farouq Aminu for George Hill.
So that makes sense to me, but because they do have Isaac out this whole year.
I know.
Aminu all of a sudden becomes very important.
Yes, which is not a sentence you want to say.
Although, if they feel really good about Chuma, they could obviously
that's
some of those minutes.
That's true. What's the least amount you would take back to do that trade?
Oh, like a second.
Would you do their 2021 second rounder? Would you do 2021 and 2022 second rounders?
Yeah, 2 seconds. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Done. Donezo.
Done. Oh, look at that. We're done.
Finished.
Great. Okay. So are you going over or under on them winning about 36 games in an average season?
Oh, Lord. I'm going to say under. I think they're going to rely on a lot of young guys. I think that their veterans are who they are. And they need a leap from somebody. And Jonathan Isaac's like really the most likely candidate for that. And he's not.
He can't leap right now.
He's not leaping. So, I mean, who else makes the leap? I don't believe Markelle Fultz will be the leap guy. Mo Bamba won't be either. And plus, their best player plays the same position as Mo Bamba.
Right.
They need Cole Anthony to be good immediately. They need Chuma Okeke to be good immediately, which is possible. I mean, Okeke's already 22. And then you're just like, who else do they have that could pop? Gary Clark? Yeah. Dwayne Bacon? They just don't have anybody.
Yeah,
Jordan Bone.
Jordan Bone. I think I would go under as well, and for a separate reason, which is that I do think the teams below them, meaning like the Hornets, Zards, Hawks, are all going to be a little bit better. Because if you look at the standings last year, like the bottom of the East was a dumpster fire. It was terrible. It was so bad. So if those teams are going to be winning, let's say even like an average of 5 more games than they won last year, collectively, that's going to take away from someone like the Magic. So I would go the under as well.
Okay.
Which brings us to Andrew, the highlight of the East, the Brooklyn Nets. Head coach Steve Nash. Other head coach Mike D'Antoni. Other head coach, who's the other guy? They have another big name.
Do they?
Yeah, they have so many big names. They won 35 games last year, which is equivalent to about 40 wins. Yeah. This year, their over-under is 45, which is interesting as we go through some of these other teams because they're one of the 3 teams that is projected to win more than the equivalent of 50 games. Yeah. So you have to bet them to win about 51 games in a normal season. Their key losses, Garrett Temple. Key additions, Jeff Green, Landry Shamet, and Bruce Brown. For me, this is an easy over. I don't even think about it. And it's because of everything we've heard about Kevin Durant from people who've played with him. Seems like he's coming back and he's healthy. Could this all fall apart? Could Kyrie Irving get injured again and be out for half of the season and be causing like chemistry issues? Yes, it's possible, but they, at their backbone, like as their foundation, they already have a playoff team on that roster. They had a playoff team without those 2 guys who were capable of winning about 40 games. And I think adding in Kevin Durant and whatever you're going to get from Kyrie Irving, I feel like totally comfortable taking the over on 51 wins.
Totally agree. I think they're going to be very good. I also think they're probably going to have James Harden on their team this year.
Whoa! Where have you been hearing that?
I think the Rockets will eventually cave.
Really?
Yeah.
See, the only reason they would cave though is if they get off to a bad start, or if James like is openly pouting and not playing like James Harden. Which of those do you think? It could be a combination. It could be both.
I think it'll be a combination. Or I think James he's done. I think he's done.
Man, because he hasn't really said anything yet. He is
not publicly. Not
right.
Publicly. Christian Wood is not fixing the Rockets.
That's not what I hear on Rockets Twitter.
Oh gosh, they're in for it, man.
There was a very funny Venn diagram of it was a joke, but it was Jokic, Bam, and Anthony Davis, and it was like all of their best qualities, and in the middle was Christian Wood because he can do it all.
Oh boy, I feel bad for them. It's actually a great situation for the Thunder because if they start the season with those guys, they're already going to win too many games to really be in the mix to keep their pick.
Right, for sure.
And I think that things could go south by Valentine's Day for them.
Oh, wow. And Holiday of Love.
Holiday of Love could be some heartbreak in Houston. Ooh. And I think I think the Nets are going to end up with the Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving trio.
And that team, for as bizarre as they'd be, that like just clock in and out. That's 50 wins. I don't care.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 50. Yeah. Easy. As far as like winning a championship with those guys, I think that's going to prove to be really difficult for them. Just because I think the personalities of those guys is going to take some time. But I don't know. I think that regular season, there's no worries. They're going to just destroy teams. Even with the current version, without James, I think they have a ton of talent on this team outside of Kevin and Kyrie. Like Karis LeVert, very good. Joe Harris is like the perfect complementary player to them. Spencer Dinwiddie can go get you a bucket. Jared Allen had a really, really good bubble. Landry Shamet's perfect for them. Jeff Green also was perfect for the Rockets. He was great for them. TLC, Jason Waterfalls, had a great bubble.
The ball will get dribbled between legs to death, Andrew. That's what one of our commenters said.
To death.
Okay, so we're both going over, and it almost sounds like that might be our first joint lock.
Lock it in, baby.
We felt pretty confident on that. Okay.
The day they traded for Bruce Brown, I locked it in.
Yo, really? That was what did it for you?
That's what did it. That's what pushed me over.
Do you have to go? Can we keep going?
I don't have to go.
I don't have to go either.
The Thunder have media availability at 11. I've got
11.
time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just keep going. 76ers. Woo! Another spicy one.
Love it.
Record last year, 43 wins, equivalent to 48 wins. This year, their over-under is 43.5 wins, which is equivalent to about 49.5 wins. So you're basically picking them to win 50 games. Key losses, Josh Richardson, Al Horford. Key additions, Seth Curry, Danny Green, Dwight Howard, Isaiah Joe. Threw him in there for my draft heads.
I like Isaiah Joe, yeah.
This is another one, Andrew. I'm going over, and I'm locking it in.
Oh, baby.
That's how confident I feel. Here's my deal. I think you can make an argument that just on just comparing them as players in a vacuum, Josh Richardson and Al Horford are better than Seth Curry and Danny Green. Totally understand that argument.
Yeah.
But for this team, I think the addition of those two shooters is so massive.
Yeah.
And it is so different from what they have done previously.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And I trust the GM now. Well, I mean, I trust Daryl Morey now. And I also think that they got a pretty significant upgrade at coach. Like, for everything that we said about Doc Rivers over this past year, I think everyone would agree he is an upgrade on Brett Brown.
Yeah.
And first year Doc Rivers is like, that's good track history.
Good
track history.
It's gold.
So I'm going over. I think that the Sixers are going to win 50 games. No sweat. They did it last year. They basically did it last year. They won 48 games. So I'm just having to pick them to win a few more games with a much better team structure around them. They don't have to worry about, like, how are we going to fit in Al Horford? It doesn't make sense. Which it just never worked last year. It never worked. And now you don't have to worry about it. And Josh Richardson, for as amazing as he was on defense, he did not really fit what they did offensively either.
That's the thing, is that this team just has to make everything about Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. Like, everything has to be about them. And somehow it became more of, how do we make Josh Richardson work with them? Like, the focus was wrong. So we just have to do whatever we can to make life easier for those guys. And they did almost everything they could to make life harder on those guys last year.
And that's like one of the MOs of Daryl Morey in his time in Houston.
Yeah.
Like, the player name specifically doesn't matter as much as whether it fits around the star, which is James Harden. If you can find a guy like a Ben McLemore who's basically just out there for anyone, and you put him in that system, all of a sudden he's a completely functional NBA player.
Without a doubt.
So I think he's doing that same thing with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. It's going to look a lot different because obviously the Rockets didn't really have a dominant center like that at any point during James Harden's career. So I'm going over. What about you?
Give me the over. I think they're going to be great.
Because
adding Seth Curry, Danny Green. I mean, Terrence Ferguson has a chance to revitalize his career here as well. I think.
Yeah, that's true.
If he's going to have a chance, I think he's in a really good situation. Actually, one, he's away from Oklahoma, which I think is a good thing personally for him. And then two, like, he only has to be a complimentary player. There's no, the expectations are gone. I think there were some expectations here in Oklahoma City for him, and they're gone. And Daryl and Doc are just going to go to Terrence and say, hey, listen, catch and shoot, play defense. And it wouldn't surprise me if he actually was good for them. Because we know, he's had some stretches in OKC where he's done that. And now he's in a new situation. He's shown the ability to be a really great perimeter defender. And if he can get it right personally and in his head, I think he's got a chance to actually be an impact player for them. He may not. He could end up not playing. It could be that, or he could end up not playing because they do have Matisse Thybulle and Seth Curry and Danny Green, or he could get a shot. But again, this is just all about Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid and what they can do. Tobias Harris actually played some of his best basketball under Doc Rivers too. So,
oh wow, going back to Orlando, or
LA
Clippers.
Yeah, he was good, and so I mean, I'm a fan of what they did, and think that another year of development for Shake Milton, who played really well for them down the stretch. I think it's good, and then getting Tyrese Maxey, who knows if he can contribute this year, but he's a really nice flyer to take toward the end of the first round. I kind of like everything they did, and I think that just the combination of Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid is good enough, and then when you actually give them space to operate, then I think that they're going to be a very good team.
Now, someone in the comment here says, this is QKC times HGA, says Simmons is a fake good player guy, which, one of the things one of my strongest opinions is that Ben Simmons is really, really, really good. And he is probably the most underrated player in the league through, I wouldn't say no fault of his own, because the shooting is a real issue. But every other thing about his game, his passing, his defense, like his rebounding from a guard position, he is elite at. And the only reason why he has this, it all comes back to the 3-point shooting, which again, totally understand, but he is so underrated. And if he ever did get out of Philly or was put in a system, maybe what is happening right now, I think just the league-wide opinion of him would change dramatically. And by the way, it's already good. I mean, he was an All-NBA player last year.
Made the All-NBA team.
All-NBA at 24.
What fake good players make the All-NBA team?
No one.
That's right.
Okay. Next, Miami Heat. They won 44 games last year, which is equivalent to about 49 games. They are projected this year to win 43 and a half. That's the over-under, which is equivalent to about 49 games. You just have to bet the Miami Heat to win the exact same amount of games that they did last season. Key losses: Jay Crowder, Derek Jones Jr. Key additions: Mo Harkless, Avery Bradley, Precious Achua. Andrew, I'm going under.
Are you?
Sophomore slump. Everyone's focused way too much on bubble heat, which, granted, bubble heat was a great thing. They had a great run. Congratulations.
Yep.
But as we've talked about, what does it really mean? Does that really mean that the Miami Heat are so obviously a top 3 seed in the East? Why weren't they last year? They had all those same guys. Now, you could argue, Tyler Hero's going to be better. He blew up in the bubble, and he's going to come back and be really great. I'm picking for the sophomore slump, Andrew. I still think the Heat are going to be good. I still think they'll be a very good team. But I think they'll be about what they were last year, which was like a mid-tier Eastern Conference team. I think the bubble has transformed us in our thoughts about the Miami Heat, and I'm not convinced that everything we saw was real.
I hate to say this, but I completely agree with you.
Whoa!
Completely agree. You have Dragic coming off pretty big injury. Jay Crowder was one of the huge reasons why they were good in the bubble. Huge reasons.
I think he was the best 3-point shooter in the bubble.
Dude, I'm telling you, he was huge for them. Bam got paid.
Doesn't have to play anymore.
Doesn't have to play ever again. He quit, actually.
He's not playing this year.
It's guaranteed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like Mo Harkless, Avery Bradley, I'm just not. Those aren't inspiring signings to me. Duncan Robinson is what he is. Very good player, very nice player. 26, fake young guy. Yeah, I'll go under. I still think they're going to be good, and you don't want to play them come playoff time, but I totally agree that they are going to be maybe the outlier team from the bubble. That's everybody's going to look back and be like, wow, can you believe the Heat did that? Like, that was weird.
It'll be them or like the Suns.
Yeah.
One of these teams that was really good in the bubble, it's not going to carry over.
Yeah. Do you think the Heat are better than the Bucks?
No, no. But when I get to the Bucks, I do. I'm feeling bad about the Bucks, but no.
Are they better than the Celtics?
Man, we should wait because I don't feel good about either of those teams.
Are they better than the Sixers?
No. See, I think the Sixers and the Nets are going to be the class of the Eastern Conference.
Okay.
That's how I'm feeling right now.
Okay. I think the Heat are in the mix. They're going to be in the mix, but I think the Celtics and the Bucks are both better.
Now, we have a commenter in the chat saying, but what about, there's not going to be fans in the stands. Won't that be pretty replicable to the bubble? And that's possible. It's possible. It is, if that was the thing that made it work for them.
Yeah, I still think like not being able to see your family and being just in the same place every single day was good for some teams. Obviously, very good for Jimmy Butler with his psycho behavior,
Oh, he's psycho behavior. Listen, that's a hot take from us. The fact that we both went under. I totally understand why people would go over.
Mm-hmm.
It makes the most sense to go over.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have to leave?
No.
Keep going? Oh, wow. Let's keep going. Indiana Pacers. Pacers.
Let's go. Let's rapid fire the Indiana Pacers.
Indiana Pacers. Record last year, 45 wins, projected in an 82-game season to be about 51 wins. This year, their over-under is 39.5. 82-game projection is 45 wins. So they're projecting that the Pacers will win 5 less games this year.
Yeah.
Key losses, TJ Leaf. Key additions, Jalen LeCue. All right, but now before you answer, Andrew, crystal ball question, how many All-Stars will the Pacers have? As you remember, last year, Sabonis was an All-Star, and a lot of people were like, if Brogdon had been healthy, I would have picked him for All-Star as well.
Yeah.
Probably
just one.
That's probably correct. So there's a very interesting dynamic with the Pacers in that we've all heard the smoke about Victor Oladipo, and along with that, Miles Turner. But and you could foresee that would cause some issues in the locker room, or if they don't get off to a good start.
Definitely.
If Oladipo is the same player that we saw in the bubble, which was like not All-Star Oladipo, but obviously still thinking that he's All-Star Oladipo, of course, why wouldn't you? And so I could definitely see that causing issues. And then you have Bubble Man, like ultimate Bubble Man, TJ Warren coming back hot off the bubble, probably going to be wanting some more playing time. You still have Sabonis, you still have Turner, you still have Brogdon. This team won about 50 games last year while having a lot of injuries to Brogdon, not having Oladipo for most of that season, and then he came back and wasn't really playing full strength. And then they hadn't unlocked TJ Warren yet and still won 50 games.
Yep.
How are you feeling? Because I know last year you hated the Pacers.
I hated them.
Thought they might miss the playoffs.
Still kind of hate them, to be honest.
Do you think they could win the equivalent of 45 games?
Yeah, I do. I'll probably take like a slight over on that. I think that they're probably within that range. But I do think that I think the Pacers would have liked to trade Oladipo and Miles Turner, but there's no market for either one of them. And it's a problem. And it's kind of puts them in a weird spot.
It does, because would you necessarily have felt better about this team if they had been able to do that sign and trade where they sent out like Doug McDermott and Miles Turner for Gordon Hayward?
I don't know. This team is just blah to me.
Oh, they're the ultimate blah team. They did get some sick new threads.
They did. They're going to be good. Like, this is going to be a good team. Yeah, I mean, I actually probably would feel a little bit better about them because then it just like Sabonis is like, he's your full-time 5. You play Hayward at the 4. Then you have Oladipo and Malcolm Brogdon and TJ Warren, Jeremy Lamb out on the perimeter. I actually probably would feel better about them.
Really?
Now you still have like this weird like Miles Turner Sabonis dynamic where it's like who plays what position, who really cares? I don't know.
Sounds like you don't care.
I'll take the over, and I'll tell you I don't really care.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm going to take the under just because I feel like you said enough negative things where they deserve at least one of us.
I know. I just got done saying all these negative things, and then I take the over.
Okay. Moving on. Boston Celtics. Now this is a spicy one. This one actually would be a lock for me potentially. So their record last year, 48 wins, which was the equivalent to about 55 wins.
Ooh, boy.
So they were a 55-win team last year. Over-under this year is 44.5, which is equivalent to about 51 wins. So they're already projecting them to win about 4 less games. And why would they do that? Well, their key losses, Gordon Hayward, Enes Kanter, and Brad Wanamaker. Key additions, Peyton Pritchard, Aaron Naismith, Jeff Teague, and Tristan Thompson. Yeah. And obviously the other factor here, which I did get these over-unders yesterday, which the report came out yesterday that Kemba Walker is having a procedure done on his knee. Yep. He's got a bad knee, and he's not going to even be evaluated until January. Yeah. So that factors in a little bit. I mean, that means they're probably going to be playing Jeff Teague a lot.
Yeah, I think it's honestly going to be more minutes for Marcus Smart total,
which would be nice. I like Marcus Smart.
Yeah.
So this is interesting because I do think they got worse this offseason. Yeah. I'm not as super high on Tristan Thompson as everyone else, but he's certainly like a functional center, and he's solid.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Tatum and Brown, and I love Smart. And so I think it's very easy to just say, like, yeah, of course they're going to win more than 51 games. I mean, that's winning less than they did last year, but they're still a really good team. Wow, I was coming into this saying I was going to lock the under, but now I'm wavering.
Yeah, it's more. Let me try to talk you into the over. More usage for Jason Tatum. Tatum's 22. He averaged like 25, 10, and 5 in the bubble. He was outstanding, and he just got his second contract. Jaylen Brown was 20 points, 6.5 boards, and 2 assists last year. More shots for him. Marcus Smart will take on a bigger role. Marcus Smart's only 26. Feels like Marcus Smart's like 30, but he's not that old. I think they expect big things from Grant Williams, which may not be as exciting for you, but very exciting for me. The biggest thing for them is their bench. Their bench is very young. They have guys. I don't know who will start. I think they might still start Daniel Tice at center and have Tristan come off the bench. I think that may be in the plans. Like Romeo Langford, I don't know that Romeo Langford will be anything. They're going to count like Aaron Naismith is going to play. He will play for them. Peyton Pritchard, I don't know if he'll play, but he'll get a shot. Jeff Teague probably coming off the bench as their 6-man type of guy. And I guess the one thing about this Boston team that like Jeff Teague is not an inspiring signing to me, but Brad Stevens has done a good job of getting a lot out of point guards. And so maybe that's like a little glimmer of hope for the Celtics in like having Jeff Teague come off the bench. But I just think, through the years with like the teams with Russ and KD, you looked at the supporting cast and like, honestly, it just didn't really matter from year to year who it was. You could put a ton of different guys with them and like, they're still going to be very good. And I think that Tatum and Brown maybe aren't at the same level as a Russ and KD, but they're not that far off.
So before you answer your over-under, I do want to talk about the elephant in the room, which is what the Celtics did this offseason. So this is from Jared Weiss at The Athletic.
Yeah.
He was talking about the TPE that they got, the traded player exception.
Yep.
He reports that they turned down an offer of Miles Turner, Doug McDermott, and a future late first-round pick for Gordon Hayward in favor of creating this trade exception, which, by the way, they didn't just create it, they paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
They sent 2 unprotected second-round picks to Charlotte to allow them to create this traded player exception. They got back a fake second, is like a top 55 protected second. I think that is a fascinating move. And obviously we can't really judge it until we see what they do with this traded player exception. If anyone's wondering, it is like $150,000 less than what Bradley Beal makes. So it will not be used to acquire Bradley Beal. But it is big enough where you can acquire a decent number of players around the league very easily.
Yeah.
And so you have to wonder if they already have someone in mind or if they just really like the flexibility, because I'm sure it's happened before, but I just thought it was really interesting that they proactively paid Charlotte to allow them to make this player exception.
Mm-hmm. The Thunder could just give them Al Horford.
We could.
Here. Have him. Take him.
Sure.
We don't want him. Take him. They could give, let's see.
Like, how would you feel right now if you were a Celtics fan? You know what the offer was out there. Miles Turner, Doug McDermott, future first. And you know that was available to you. And instead you got this trade exception. How would you be feeling right now?
I think Miles Turner's overrated. This was my first sentence. I don't know. It's hard to say because I don't know what they can get with that. What could you what's feasible? They could just take Oladipo. Right?
Yeah.
You could just, I mean, if let's say that he comes back and he plays well, but he's still like, yeah, get me out of here. You just take him for a year. You just take him for the year. Would you feel better about the team if they had Victor Oladipo?
Not really. Not at all.
What would make you feel better? How can it make you feel better, just personally?
Actually, thank you for caring about me for once. I would say, so some of the names that Jared Weiss brought up, one of the Orlando guys, like Evan Fournier, Aaron Gordon, Terrence Ross. He also brought up Buddy Hield, maybe, or Harrison Barnes. Now, they some of these deals, they're going to have to be sending something back, but they can absorb the players very easily.
Yeah, you could just send them a second-round pick or something.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Buddy on that team would be kind of fun.
What about this? What if Otto Porter comes back and looks good?
Oh, no. I used to love Otto Porter, and he was really good fantasy guy.
Yeah. What if he becomes that guy again? Wouldn't he be great? Like a great role player? I mean, he shoots a high volume and hits a high percentage of corner threes when he's healthy.
Yeah, when he's healthy. I don't know. That just seems so far away because we're already talking hypotheticals with this TPE.
I'm talking about like just players that would just be given to them, though.
Yeah. I just feel like I don't think they would have paid this much for this TPE just to bring in like a random guy who they can just have. I feel like they make that deal because they think they can get someone locked in with the Celtics for a couple of years. So like, for instance, trading for someone like a Buddy Hield where you have to give something back, you lock him in for a few years and you have all of a sudden gotten an asset that is going to be with your team going forward.
Yeah.
I don't think you do it just for 1 year of a guy.
What about for Aaron Gordon?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm still very much a believer in Aaron Gordon. Did you know that he just turned 25? Just.
Yeah, I mean, that would, if you just start him at the 4 next to Daniel Tice.
Yeah.
And let's say the Magic just suck. Like, oh boy, like this is horrible. You could give them Langford, Peyton Pritchard, Robert Williams, and a second round pick for Aaron Gordon.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's the type of move that I think they'd want to do. Where they can get a youngish guy that's on their timeline that is basically another wing, just like another. Because at that point, if you roll out a lineup, I mean, you could roll out some crazy super small ball lineups.
Yeah, you could play him at center.
Yeah, Aaron Gordon, Tatum, Brown, Smart, and Kemba. Like, that's terrifying.
That'd be sick. That'd be pretty
awesome.
sick.
Pretty sick. Okay. So would you go over under on them winning the equivalent of about 51 games.
I'll go over. I really think Tatum can take another step up, and I think Danny Ainge is always doing stuff. And to think that this is going to be their team, I just don't think it's going to be their team. I think they're going to do some more stuff.
Yeah, and if you're betting on the over, you're basically betting on this is a really good organization and they have this piece available to them. Mm-hmm. Now, on the flip side, we have heard this time and time again with Danny Ainge. He always has some asset that's about to be flipped into something else, and it never is. Except in the one case of Kyrie.
Yeah, it's true. I think there will be pressure. There'll be pressure on him to do something with that trade exception. I don't think you acquire the largest trade exception in NBA history and pay for it and then do nothing with it. I'll say that.
And it's been interesting listening to Simmons, obviously Bill Simmons, a big Celtics fan, kind of coming to this realization that this team probably should have been and could have been a lot closer to winning a championship these last couple of years.
Yeah.
And we really realized it in the moment because Jason Tatum was like leaping in front of our eyes. Like it was happening in that moment. But yeah, looking back, like there's no reason why they couldn't have been that team in the bubble this year. I mean, they were just as talented.
Well, and you lose Kyrie, Horford, and now Gordon Hayward all for nothing.
Except the largest TPE in league history.
Yes. And if they can salvage that, then maybe it's fine. But right now it doesn't look there's something weird there with that team. You don't lose. I mean, Kyrie's weird. He's a weirdo. Fine. But you lose two guys that willfully left, and some of it was the money. But if the situation was very, very good for them, Gordon Hayward's not leaving. He just opts in, right?
Yeah.
Al Horford just resigns.
Yeah.
But there's something about the situation there.
And it's funny because prior to them signing Al Horford and Gordon Hayward, Boston was not thought of as a free agent destination. And that was actually like a really big deal that they got both of those players.
Yeah.
And now it's seeming like we're back to where we were, which is like Boston isn't really a place that attracts free agents.
Yeah. They did
even though I know they got Kemba, but now it feels like that's blowing up in their face as well for completely other reasons. Right. Matty Moles asks, could they get Gordon and Hill for the TPE? Correct me if I'm wrong, but you can only get one player.
Yeah, only one transaction with the TPE. Yeah.
So they could do it. Okay, Andrew, we only have two left. If we could get through the Eastern Conference, that would be amazing.
Let's do it.
All right. Next, the Toronto Raptors, the Tampa Bay Raptors. Their record last year, 53-19, equivalent of 60.4 wins. They're over-under. They were a 60-win team last year. They're over-under this year, 43.5. 82 games, that's 49.5 wins. They're projected to lose 10 of those wins. Their key losses, Serge Ibaka, Marc Gasol, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. Key additions, Aaron Baines, DeAndre Bembry, Alex Len. I'm telling you right now, Andrew, I'm going over and I'm locking it in. And I'll tell you one of the reasons why.
Tell me.
So we talked about it last time, how one of the big random factors this year is COVID, because we've seen it with the NFL. Like a few guys can get COVID and all of a sudden it screws up the entire schedule. It's going to be even worse in the NBA because if one guy gets COVID, he could be out potentially like 10 to 14 days and miss maybe 5 games, which would be a big deal. As I look over all the teams, who would potentially have the biggest advantage at not getting COVID? I think it's the Raptors because they're not in their home city. They're in Tampa Bay. They're basically in their own kind of pseudo bubble.
This is true.
They're going to be in that bubble mindset. They're going to be so focused. It's just going to be basketball all the time. And yes, they lost some key pieces. Okay. Serge Ibaka, Marc Gasol, very good. Yeah. But you're not having to project them to win 60 games like they did last season. They won 60 games or the equivalent. You're only having to project them to win 10 wins less. Projecting them to win 50 games. I think Nick Nurse is an incredible coach. I think Siakam, for as bad as he looked in the bubble, It's going to work out fine in the regular season.
Yeah.
They've got Fred VanVleet back. They've got Kyle Lowry back. I'm saying one more year of really high-quality Raptors basketball. I'm going over and locking it in.
Wow. Oh, I also want to go back to our Nets lock and lock it in even harder.
Wow,
more,
double lock.
Because all the Nets have had COVID. All of them.
That's actually, I should have brought that up. That's true. All the Nets have basically had COVID already. So they're another team that has like that weird benefit.
Which is the strangest competitive advantage to have.
Yeah, and obviously there are some reports of reinfection, but it doesn't seem to be like as prevalent.
Right.
So it does seem to have some advantage for the Nets.
Yeah. It's just a weird thing to say, but it's just true. They've all had it. Yeah, the Raptors struggled with injury a lot last year too, and just kept winning. I really like Malachi Flynn. I think he can come in right away and play. You do have like Terrence Davis was like weirdly important to them last year in the regular season, and he's got some weird legal issues going on where he may not even be in the NBA anymore. So that's a tough one for them, but like they believe in Chris Boucher, and Aaron Baines is a nice addition. I think he's going to fit right in with the Raptors culture there. I think they'll miss Ibaka. Definitely they'll miss Ibaka. But I think Aaron Baines is like a nice enough player to replace Marc Gasol, and even actually might even be better for them because Aaron Baines will actually take threes where Marc Gasol is a little more reluctant to. Like per minute, Aaron Baines takes way more threes than Marc Gasol did, which I think will be helpful to them. So I'm kind of with you. I don't know that I'll lock it in, but I like this team. I like the culture of the team from the GM down to the coach, and then the leaders of the team like Kyle Lowry and VanVleet. Norman Powell was very good for them last year, and maybe that's a fluke because he tends to kind of wax and wane through the years. You know, Norman Powell averaged 16 points per game last year.
Wow. No, I did not know that.
That was a thing that happened. He averaged more points per game than Serge.
That's kind of wild.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
That kind of weirded me out when I saw that.
So he's their fourth leading scorer?
Yeah. Does that make you feel better or worse?
Better. Fourth leading, yeah. I just think they're still very strong up top. Those top three guys, I just believe in a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think VanVleet is very good, and they actually got a pretty nice deal for him. I think $20 million is a little over $20 million. It's a good contract for him. I think he earned that.
Before we go to our last one, we've been talking about locks, Andrew. I got a new YouTube recommendation. Now this one isn't as like in the weeds. This is a pretty well known. You may know him yourself, the lock picking lawyer. Have you seen this guy?
No.
He's a lawyer on YouTube who has a very calm voice, and all he does on his channel is he cracks locks. The entire show. Usually the videos are like 2 to 4 minutes.
He's just picking locks.
He's very good at it. Like elite. Wow. Like he gets locksmiths who send him locks with like $100 in them and say, if you can break this lock open, and he does it in like 3 seconds. So go check out Lock Picking Lawyer.
This episode is brought to you by Lock Picking Lawyer.
And he gets like millions of views on his videos.
Unbelievable. Wow.
Okay, our grand finale for the Eastern Conference over-unders. We made it. This is the most we've ever done in an episode. Congratulations to us. We're going to still be on track to finish by the start of the season. Milwaukee Bucks last year won 56 games, which was equivalent to about 63 wins. This year, they're over-under highest in the league, 50.5, which over an 82-game season would be about 57.5 wins. Before I read their losses, why don't we read their additions? Drew Holiday, Torrey Craig, Bryn Forbes, Bobby Portis, Nick Stauskas, Now let's read their losses. Robin Lopez, Eric Bledsoe, George Hill, Ersan Ilyasova, Kyle Korver, Wes Matthews, Marvin Williams. I hadn't thought about the Bucks too much in terms of who they lost until I started writing all those guys out. And yes, there are flaws with each of those players, but every single one of those guys is an NBA rotation player. Somebody who you can play in an NBA game and feel generally confident about what they're going to do because they're a known asset. You know who these guys are. You know who George Hill is. You know who Wes Matthews is. Even someone like Marvin Williams, who I guess is retired now. You knew what he was bringing to the table. To lose, what is that, 7? Lose 7 of those guys? And to really only replace them with Drew Holiday? Because I think the other guys they brought in, Stauskas, Portis, Forbes, Craig, any of those guys could pop, and I'm sure 1 or 2 of them will. But I still don't feel like super confident on betting on those guys the way I would feel confident about betting on those 7 veterans that left. And so when you look now at their over-under, yes, they're projected to win like 5 less games than they won last year. But still, 57.5 wins, which basically means you have to pick them to win 58 games, which is probably going to be the highest total in the league this year. I don't think I can do it, Andrew. I think I'm going under.
I'm going over and I'm locking it in.
Oh, no!
Lock that baby in. All the guys that you mentioned, they all have one thing in common. They don't matter.
That's not true.
None of those guys matter. None of them. Not one of them. Not even one.
So you only think as long as you have Drew, Middleton, and Giannis, whatever.
Yes.
But it's not just whatever. It's not you're picking them. You're not like you're just picking them to win 50 games, which I'd be like, yeah, sure. They have to win the equivalent of like 58 wins. Do you think they're going to be the best team in the league again?
Yeah.
You would pick them for the number 1 seed in the East.
Lock it in.
Wow. Locking it in.
Please lock it in.
I refuse to lock it in.
Please lock it in.
I'm going to do undercase lock on my screen. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm all in. I think that and this has been said on a lot of shows, but I think it matters. They probably have the best trio in the league because, one, there's just not a lot of very good trios in the NBA right now. But like from top to bottom, the Giannis, Middleton, Drew Holiday is probably the best trio.
Is that true? Let me think about this. Okay, I've thought about it. No, I don't think there are any.
There's not.
Like I might actually put like Dame, CJ, and Nurkic very high on that list, which I don't think that's as good as the Bucks.
Yeah, exactly. And that's probably more to do with the way that talent is spread out in the NBA today than it is to do with like this Bucks trio being amazing. But I do think that when in regards to like winning regular season games, that totally matters.
Oh, we got some suggestions. What about LeBron, AD, and Thunder legend Dennis Schroeder? I was actually trying to think of who I would put as third on the Lakers. I'd forgot that Schroeder was there.
Yeah, I mean, the third best guy is Drew Holiday. Like Drew Holiday is a heck of a lot better than Schroeder is.
Yeah, but I would take LeBron and AD over Giannis and Chris.
Giannis is very good. I know he had a bad bubble, but Giannis,
is he any good?
Back-to-back MVP.
Is he any good? Austin Sternlick says Knicks have cap, space, and flexibility.
That's right, baby.
A pretty good trio.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, I think the only guy that they will really miss is George Hill. That's what I would say.
It's going to be interesting to watch because they are. You would agree that they are not as deep as last year.
Yeah.
I mean, they are definitely a thinner team. Their bench is going to look bad and potentially be bad.
Which could potentially help them come playoff time because Bud was so reliant on playing so many guys and wouldn't play Giannis a ton of minutes. He wouldn't play those guys many minutes. And when it came time for playoffs, they still wouldn't do it. And it made them a lot worse because they relied on their bench too much. And to me, relying on Giannis, Drew Holiday, and Middleton more is only going to be good. I think Bobby Portis is a nice regular season guy. I don't know what he can do come playoff time. I think Torrey Craig is a helpful defender. I think Brent Forbes can really shoot it. Nick rocks.
Yeah, there it is.
Oh, man.
Wow, we made it through the whole Eastern Conference, which means we can do the Western Conference.
We did it.
We did 10 this week.
Oh,
it only took us.
Feels good.
Actually, it's not even 2 hours. Hour and a half.
Yeah, hour and a half.
Big whoop. Big whoop.
Not bad.
So who do you know? Going back to the Thunder, today's media availability. Do you know who it's going to be?
Hami.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And somebody else.
Oh, somebody else.
I'm not sure.
Do you think Poku will ever be in the media availability? He will be. So we'll get to talk to him.
Yeah, he'll talk. He's supposed to talk this week.
Interesting.
Yep. It should be fun. But
all right.
Hopefully I don't make anybody mad today by asking a simple question.
You know, Baze was just getting you back. He's probably good friends with Kyle Singler. And Kyle was like, hey, if this guy ever asks you a question, please rip into him because he's a jerk.
Well, it's funny. Like the setting is me sitting here in this exact same place all day. And we have to have our cameras off so they can't see us. I don't know
really?
I don't know what they're looking at. And I don't even know, like they say, like Andrew Schleck from The Athletic and Down to Dunk. I don't know what that means to them. Probably nothing, right?
Yeah.
Like that probably means nothing to Darius Bazley.
Oh, he's like, down to dunk? Oh,
really? I mean, obviously it meant nothing to him. That was very clear. But you know, it is a weird situation. That's another like factor. It's not like we're sitting in a room together and he can see us. I mean, he couldn't see me. He couldn't see anybody. He's just sitting in a room listening to somebody's voice come into the room and he has to answer the question. So that's another thing. Like, I don't know. Like I'd give Baze a break. Give me a break, please. Just give us all a break.
I mean, let's be honest. Your question was not as bad as when you asked Kyle Singler to justify himself.
It was not even close to as bad. And honestly, I respect Kyle Singler so much for actually trying to answer the question.
He gave it a shot.
He did. He gave it a shot. And it was hilarious and uncomfortable.
Well, I'm excited to see what questions you come up for the rest of the week.
Yeah, I'll get back at it today. So I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks for listening. If you've made it through this gauntlet of a Wednesday pod, thanks for listening. We appreciate you guys. Make sure that you go to theathletic.com/down-to-dunk and subscribe. We've had tons of people do it this week, so much so that they've given me a little shout out. I got a little shout out from somebody up above telling me how great that is. So keep doing it. It's very helpful for our podcast. If you use that link, theathletic.com/down-to-dunk. Also leave us a 5-star Apple Podcast review. We would appreciate that. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks for watching. Make sure that you are subscribed. That is also helpful to us if you do that. If you are just listening to the pod, you might just go check out the YouTube channel. It's kind of fun. It's fun to be in the chat. So come join us. Hope you guys have a great day. We'll talk to you guys again on Friday.